So there's a couple small things I would like to add to this. One is I would like to add just, after the pop up, the axe freezes and just kind of sits there. And what I would like to happen is after the axe pops up, the character that sees it is going to jump back, kind of afraid, and then bounce off. And so what I'd like to have is like maybe the axe kind of leans forward here after a few minutes. So maybe like a little bit of a breathe here, or like a look around here, and then the axe kind of leans in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and do the lean in first. So I'm just going to have, and then like a look around maybe. And so for that, I'll kind of have the axe just kind of do a little bit like this. And again, I want to select everything here, S, make sure we're getting it. And so this transition's a little linear, it's a little boring, so I may put a little bit of a dip in there. Maybe I'll grab this, translate it down just a little bit, translate this down, and maybe dip the head here, maybe even drag the head a little bit to the side. More than anything, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And so we get a little bit of a transition in that motion now. And then maybe after that, again, we could always take that and overshoot a little bit if we would like. So we could take that motion, go just a little past what we'd want, and then it comes back. And that's a little like a little far and a little slow, but let's try it anyway. If I make it faster, what's that look like? I think that's working. Actually, I think this head turn here is a little too much for it. Just the dip works a little bit better. And then I could overshoot that way. And I'm using the greater than, less than keys to cycle through it. Let's see what happens now. Pan over. Pops up. What's going on? And then we can add a couple of little things right through here. Maybe like a really subtle head turn. Here. Like, what's going on? And then maybe a really subtle one here as well before we get to the end. There we go. And so now we got this. Yeah, again, I think my exaggeration is just a touch too much. So this is a spot where I can go in here and maybe go back a little bit, like maybe there, maybe the transition just goes a little too far before back to there. So maybe like this one on 165 or even this on 164. What I could do to borrow some of that is just middle click on 164, drag back to 163, and override it with S. Let's see what that looks like now. Yeah, that's looking a little bit better. So again, thinking of that offset, right? Let's go ahead and save my file, increment and save. So for this stretch here where my character pops up, maybe I want to have this overlapping action happen. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna do just a little bit more of a settle here. When it hits here, it hits a little hard. And so what I'm actually going to do is for this pose, I'm going to go ahead and grab these top 2 or 3 controls and let it kind of settle, just overshoot just a little bit there. Like that. right? And then maybe for some of this through here, I'll just add a couple of little like keep alive poses. So it's just moving just a little bit, right? Yeah, that's working much better. So this motion here that we have, I want that to have some overlapping action in it, along with some of the rest of this through here. And so one of the ways I can do that is by finding some of these controls that are further down the hierarchy and making those happen either a little earlier or a little later. So for example, if I grab just these top two controls, since all of my keys are on the same frames, I can now start offsetting these and have them happen on different frames. So let's try the top three controls, and then grab this section of the animation where the character pops up and sort of sits there for a little bit. And let's make that happen one frame later. Then I'll grab just the next two. And again, looks like I forgot to key some stuff there. One frame later. And then this one. Make that happen one frame later. And so by doing that, this is what I get. So you see how it's a little looser now, right? So I just did that with that section of the animation, just this section here. And so now my timeline's a little harder to understand, but it looks a little bit better. And so the next section is this look forward. So from here, 155 to the end, right? And I want to do the opposite with it. I want to grab these three, and I want to have all of these keyframes happen one frame earlier. And what that's going to make it look like is that the head is leading that action, and the rest of the body is happening a little later. So if I highlight this, I can drag those one frame earlier, and then again, one frame earlier, one frame earlier. And again, if I look at all of this, now my timeline is a little harder to understand, but the motion is going to look much more fluid and loose. So we get here. So I like what we're getting so far. I'm getting a couple of little hiccups in here, and so this is going to give me a chance to kind of play around with that. I think part of it is right there, I think my head hits that top pose just a little too early, or a little too high maybe. And I'm just going to continue to key this and just kind of add a little bit more detail there. There we go. And seeing something else that's happening weird right there. It seems like it goes up too high too early. So if this is not working, I can always go back and just manually fix the spot. So right now I think it pops up a little earlier than I would like it to. So it's there. Yeah. Now the last thing we're going to want to do is go through here and look at each of these curves in the graph editor. So I can change this to my graph editor, and it is right here. And I can then do any refinement that I want on this animation. So for example, this is the way the box or the axe pops up to the top, and then it just kind of, what is this? This is the forward and backward rotation, right? And then it just kind of stops there, right? And so really maybe what I want is key, add key tool. I may want it to go past it just a touch, and then just kind of settle back into this and be a little bit smoother. The same here, maybe it does that. Maybe that's actually hitting a little too hard, and I can just soften this. So I don't know. It's going to take a little bit of time combing through all of my curves to see exactly what I want it to do. But generally, the way animators work is they go through every one of these curves and just make sure they're doing exactly what you want them to do. This is the part where we're refining this motion. And a lot of times, if something weird is happening, if you select the curve, you may be able to find that in the graph editor, right? So, for example, here, this is this rotate to the side, and it kind of pops up sharp and then back down and then back forward. And really, maybe what's actually happening here is this is just a little too sharp. Right? Maybe that's just a little bit too quick of a change. I like that this drags down here, but maybe we need this there to sort of ease in on it or something. Let me just play around with this a little bit more. And then finally, I think that, let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, that's helping. The other thing is I see like the axe goes up and forward and then down. And so I think that that is in this control here, that there's some stuff happening in the translates that feel very linear. And so let's try this. Let's see now. It may just be that it's very straight and we need to like soften this just a little bit. But I bet part of the problem is there's not a lot of rotation happening on that. So I could maybe do, let me say that, there's a little bit there in there. It's like right here, instead of that rotating forward, maybe we need to rotate this like this. There we go. And just play around with this until we get the motion that we want. There we go. That's feeling a little bit better. One more time. Okay, so I messed that up a little bit. It's going to the front of the box there now, but I can go back to here and maybe scrunch it a little bit. There's something right there that I'm not crazy about. I'm going to need to figure out what it is. I think it's here, is that I really want that to rotate forward more after that. And that's the rotate X. That's still rotating back at that point. Maybe it's this. I do something like that. Let's see how that feels. There we go. That's feeling a little bit better. So, again, it's lots of refinement, lots of little things that you have to work around with until you get exactly the motion you're wanting in order to make the audience believe that this axe is alive. Because, as you all remember from the beginning of this video, it wasn't. So, this will allow us to sort of cause the audience to believe that the axe is actually thinking, making decisions on its own. And really, that's the illusion. That's the thing that we are trying to achieve in animation.